And commissioners, your meeting is live.
You're live?
You're live.
All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to the July 3rd meeting of Raleigh County Commission. Please stand and join the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One public comments to start it is welcome to our new, anybody that's watching. Yes, we're in a new spot. That's great. And we owe a lot of appreciation to all the staff. I know particularly IT put this all together. It's a good setup. Appreciate all the work they did, and also Vivian getting the word out. Hopefully the people find us now. With that, are there any other public comments?
Okay. And what that Commissioner King just said there too. And with the meeting sometimes, and I felt like a duck on a pond here over the last few days, so appreciate the working efforts and everything. Seems knock on fake wood, I guess. Seems to be working on us. Yeah. Okay, so with that said, overall, this week's been pretty slow so far. Obviously, some things moved to shifted around here to the temporary location, and looking forward to getting moving forward and just keeping caught up with emails and lots of correspondence on several different subjects. And look through today's package, get updated on everything, and looking forward to discussion today. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, let's see, Monday after our meeting, I packed up my office items, paperwork to get ready for the move to this space, FCRC building. Got most of the items I needed, but needed to check out what was new in the new office, and my office is straight back. If anybody wants to come visit, give me a call. The phone numbers are the same. I keep going to the other entrance, so be sure when you come in, come to this one on the far side. And later that afternoon, I had another PT session. Tuesday, took a friend to the hospital for some tests. Later came down here again, where I unpacked the items that were here. It was great that they brought everything down and didn't have to move anything. So kudos to staff for doing that. I'll need to get a few things. I'll work with Cindy on that. Wednesday came back to the permanent office, got some additional items, and then after that, I attended the Westland Business Association monthly meeting at Rockin' K's. Several presentations were made. One by Marcia Roselle from the Chamber's Tourism Department. Visit MHK. She had dollar figures on the effect of sports on tourism in the city and the sports programs they support. And those are in addition to, but not including, Kansas State sports. Then Daphne from HEA presented the new proposal for faster bus route from the east and northeast part of Manhattan to Ogden and I think Junction City also. It was an informative discussion with membership. She encouraged everyone to take a survey on the transit system. It's due July 13th. Everybody, we'll deal with a QR code if anybody wants this and wants to check out the survey, but it is online too. So fhata.org/study. After that presentation, all those present identified their businesses and updates, and there won't be a meeting in August. So we'll meet again in September. So that's all I've got.
Well, spent a lot of time responding to calls, emails, etc. about the Mercury's article. Some articles, some more cordial than others. The numbers were exaggerated a little bit in there because they said average house went up 5%, and actually it's 3.5%, and totals are not the final number. all three commissioners have said from the beginning, we can't have a large increase in our intent on finding savings. I've tried to explain to people that the budget process takes several weeks to iron out. And the first numbers are not what we, not what we end up with, and we're gonna get there. I also pointed out that whatever increase we do have is only a small part of the tax bill, and in the cities, Riley County share is about 25% of total. Now, the county areas is between 30 and 35%, 30 and 33%, depending on the townships. So, your taxes aren't going up, whatever ours come in, that's only a fraction. Some others get to take a shot at it. That's all I had.
Ready for business, commissioners? First item, we have a motion on the advisory board appointment letters and resolution.
I would make a motion to approve the following appointments and resolution number 070325, appointing Raleigh County representatives to the council advisory boards. One for Parks Board, another for the Public Health Advisory Board, and the Public Health Advisory Council.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the following appointments with resolution 070325, appointing Riley County representatives to the council advisory boards as listed. All in favor?
Aye.
All three sign, please.
Situated here.
No, everything's just a little different.
Yeah. Here's two.
Thank you. Commissioners, any changes to the minutes?
No, I know.
No, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 30th meeting of the Raleigh County Commission.
I would second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the June 30th meeting as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
No tentative agendas for the commissioners. Any items? Any items for next week's press conference?
No.
Okay, we have Mr. Hanson at 9.
This special some they call me up with the school. And thanks. I did mention to me. I wouldn't say names, but that's Sunday. And I get them, so I call them about. So, you can answer all these Facebook things and they're not. I said, Lots of anything else.
Oh, yeah, there,
If you start answering, you think somebody didn't, even if you tell them truth, if it's what they want to hear, that's generally. Again, I told them, oh, no, we later on, a lot of discussion about a lot of things later on, stuff about the scene part, why it comes to me. You didn't, I said, yeah, we did that. I said, that's why I don't respond, because I'm gonna tell you the truth. People believes it. So. Then, you know, just like, big, like clarify some. Budget stuff, that's. Trying to answer. Taking the answer all of them. I wouldn't. They tell me
Yeah,
to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
well, I had one, I answered. Phone agency, and I said, no.
I didn't scroll down, sorry.
Hardly there. And I was trying out. Probably.
That's everything, and I want. Modern thinking back to things. Yeah, it's something. Stable. It's a good. Still setting even exceptions.
Well,
Saying state. State thing that. Send signals. That's.
well. No, we know.
Yeah.
It's hard to forget.
Who's 60. I think I can find. Well, get those. Not just, I went in there. I see somebody next door, and reached myself a neighbor, and you know, these things. It's that's. That. Yes, that's the notice.
It's chilly in here. Of course, I keep the thermostat at home. Very high. We start high. 77. And I turn on the fans and. Oh, good dogs. Still used to it. Guess I should take a survey, but I don't think that's. You know what, have you looked at all?
Got to be. Next week.
Yeah,
And if.
it was all. To me, rather than fast. It's a big.
Some of this stuff, so also.
Something.
City, except for me, city, change it. That's what right around. See, that's stuff. That's the only, that's the other marker, that's stuff, sun. No, really. Oh, really?
Yeah, but but somewhere they get lots of all the lottery. So, yeah.
Well, and I like
Just wonder. Maybe one of these is home.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the first dollar. Because I called it system. And she said yes, and she went through this one. That time isn't bad. It's gonna be the class. It's that. Son, shot. Here, yeah, and it wasn't that bad. Getting ready to kill him.
Well, everything's fine.
Breathe.
Oh, that's fine. It's far from the sleep.
But it wasn't that bad. I was worried about some little foot passions. Once they started, it's just.
It's like those moments from the school.
I was able to get some, so it just.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Because we've been.
Yes, the science.
Those are kids. Oh, it's too young, this one's same age, so much.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, James, yeah.
Yes.
This, I'm about to be. Versions. Could be.
Yeah.
Six kids. I can't remember which one's the daughter's class, so. That's. And then there's custom holdovers and there's. Holdovers too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know this.
It's got a lot of grandkids too. Travel around somewhere. I don't know how she knows. She took care of them. Because when I had my business, she would it's the current. Yeah, it was like. I think come over and visit, see what I was okay, you know, he'd sit there and talk to me, and I was like, oh,
Somebody in Kansas City.
insurance.
And it, yeah, Genesis. That's the work for myself, but that money available at that time, but I think he did some study. That's.
This pin. It has been very good fun. It's great. He does stuff. But once we fix up, you guys don't sort of, theological inspection.
Priest.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
So it was a big scandal.
No problem.
Gave it the priest. That was a big scandal. Well, your family from Salem. No, yeah. And they both went to things that you can do. Let's see. We've got what, 9 minutes. I guess we could have moved. James with us.
Backing up stuff, throughout, sort of through.
Yeah.
The recycle.
Yeah, I did too. I
And
don't know.
when I got here, I opened up, started thinking, and why did they bring this? So I started
Yeah.
cleaning more stuff out. I've got.
Oh, I've got still also, people give you those binders. Let's see, and everything was cleaned out and I'm with him. I tell you that. Happy to. Oh, yeah, that one.
I need this, on the desk, it's stuff. It's a clean stuff. That I'm sort of sure those.
For Christ. Yeah, when I moved in, there were things I just was totally. Well, was it John? Somebody came by and you just put everything on a big car. Took it away. It was one of the buildings. It came in, I just loaded it up with wireless. But there's still, yeah, I've called. I don't know what to do with this.
This one, yes, officer, I guess.
We had some desks with some doors that be fine.
Yes.
Is it like 5?
Yes, and that's this. I shouldn't go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I have a expensive when I have files.
I'm not gonna go crazy.
I'll have to go check out your office.
Mine's pretty basic, and that's good enough for more.
Hmm?
Mine's pretty basic, it's good enough. I'm not as all crazy setting everything out.
No.
Only the technology works, I got a little bit of space.
Yeah, I haven't.
I thought I was having an accident in the office.
Yeah, and we have to walk around.
Maybe I can't even eat the maze.
Well, they apparently they're more pressures, I guess.
He said they had to stop.
Yeah, they- Maybe you just take them with us.
Yeah.
We'll go back. They're gonna turn my office now. There's a window behind there.
Oh, there you go.
And they're gonna open that up and replace it, so they don't, I won't have that space, which is kind of weird, because they built it out.
I just figured you had an alley to look at it.
Well,
The space we
yes,
had.
I think there's a stairway out there somewhere, but I can't figure out which windows which. Yeah, there's not much to look at, but looking at that,
Yeah.
like these are really nice.
Yeah, I think it's colors from the, you know, there's some cloud you can't see.
I can't see anything. I like. What are those things that stick out from the wall? I was wondering that.
The lights that go up,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Really? Huh, that'd be kind of cool. Wonder why they did that. One thing I forgot, because there's a kitchen in there. They must use this for the nursing home for the. Sure.
It was that big one up there, there was a big kitchen up in that one.
This one isn't as big. This is.
I guess when we walk in, we could have
I'm wondering
Vivian.
if they didn't maybe use this for employee.
And there's another kitchen back in the office back there on the back wall. It's not as big, it doesn't have, there's a dishwasher and sink and has an access.
I wonder if that was an employee break room and this was like a cafeteria for
For the employees.
Yeah, the big one was for the residents.
I think we should get the kitchen going and have Vivian serve us breakfast through
Yeah, I
that
think
window.
that's, we could do some lunches.
I make a motion.
There's a bunch of chairs in there. We have to figure out what to do with all the chairs.
Hey, if it comes to food, we can get furniture out of there.
Well, there's a nice refrigerator back there. I think we have.
It is.
It's not, I don't know that it works.
Well, it's not plugged in, so that's.
Well, it's plugged in and it was working, but it's not open there and it's science and that.
Oh, okay.
Science,
Science, there's science.
penicillin experiments.
Experiments.
Interesting. Well, I kind of tried to get it open and see what was in.
Wasn't it amazing the number of cars at that car show in Randolph? Gosh, there's a lot of cars. That was impressive.
Yeah, dude.
Was that?
Impressive.
I didn't get up.
You didn't get, I didn't make it. I was there last
I
year.
figured there'd be some nice cars, but not that many.
They draw.
I see one was so clever. I don't know, may or may not know Larry Freebie.
I know, Larry.
Well, he drives them, he's really into Model A's. And he also has a wonderful sense of humor. And in this Model A, he's got this little brown paper bag that says a Model A airbag.
That's pretty fun.
It was hanging from the dash.
I told your wife another sign that I saw on a truck, and it was just if you looked in it in a flat piece of paper. Did you look in that one truck? You look in the truck and it says, for sale, there's no price, it says for sale, girlfriend's pregnant, wife's pissed.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, it was amazing. I talked to the gentleman that came on all the way from Hayes with his car out there. He came from Hayes.
Yeah, they pull in from a lot of places.
Yeah, and it's awesome to be in that valley with all the shades.
That park was a neat feature town there, that little town.
The only problem. Okay, the only problem going with my wife is I'm a talker. I like to talk.
Really? We've never noticed that.
And I like to talk to people and stuff, and she's like, okay, that's enough.
She just wants to walk by.
Yeah, let's just walk by the book. We don't need to hear, but the stories. What it's carved.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to engage a couple of individuals on the cars and then.
Where you got yanked on.
So they sit out through the show like these.
Right, yeah, we're.
My wife went to the other stuff while I was in first.
Enjoy it.
Ran into Lyle Shepard and. He said, we're getting old, Mike. I said, well, you're getting old. I still look great.
Well, this is great to be able to see the presenter. Normally I can rarely see the.
I don't know, it feels a little bit more like court on this one. Podium and I grab like this and it is.
Counted for.
You're the first one that gets to present too.
I am. I sure am. And just a couple topics. Nothing too terribly exciting, I hope. In fact, I do have good news to share, actually.
Yeah, good. Use that. There's not been a lot of that lately.
Far away.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Jacob Hansen, interim Riley County Councilor, here on my administrative session before you guys. And as I discussed, do have some good news to share. There was a case in 2014, if you may recall. There's a Charles Archer versus the Board of County Commissioners, and there was some issues regarding sewer systems. I can't necessarily recall the specifics. However, the individual was awarded around $50,000 in attorney's fees from the county. They have not collected on that at all. And so just recently, I went ahead and filed a motion to have that judgment extinguished, since they have never came to collect on it. And I think 5 years. And then after the 5 years, it goes dormant. And that if it's dormant for 2 years, it is extinguished and done. So we should have about $50,000 coming back to the county. So wanted to share that with you folks. We filed that. I know Commissioner McKinley spoke last week briefly about the folks at White Canyon. That was a timely topic, as my office is getting ready to put out a letter to those folks in White Canyon. I know you guys have probably directed that some time ago, but we're going to have that letter sent out shortly, which just kind of explains the situations to the folks, that the roads out there aren't open county roads. They are private roads, and they've got to figure out how they're going to maintain the roads themselves. And so we're just providing that additional notice to them, and also mention that the county did help them out when they did not have to. I think to the tune of somewhere around $7,000, maybe a little more. So we have that letter going out here shortly. One other thing I wanted to bring up, of course, is we have the county officials luncheon on July 14th. What would the commission like to have there for the luncheon?
Do you need it?
I don't
We
think
should
the
do it quarterly.
the department heads didn't have any topics.
I don't-
believe.
yeah, I
So
don't
it's
think so.
just if the board does. Yeah, the last few years we've been having them quarterly, but we put it on monthly in case anyone has anything.
I don't think so.
Okay, then I can, I'll put that out to everybody. Let them know we're just gonna do away with it for this month. Okay. I will make a note.
We had commissioners on the road.
No, we didn't keep that in mind. That's so here.
Yeah, we still have time then.
That's why I thought about it.
I did too.
Oh, we'd never be at that line. That like we do it.
Yeah,
Well, we've got 3 communities, we've got 6 months. So we'll be at 4 communities. Okay, that's right.
We'd have to be, we end up having once one a month.
whatever the board wants to do.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do it during December.
Probably it's gonna be hard to do in November.
November gets tough with elections, holidays.
White Candy you're talking, you're doing it all of them, not just on that one road.
Yeah, it's every single resident.
Because there's, like I said, one complaining to me, says, well, they've got this marked with a private road. It is.
It certainly is, and then dealing with the Corps of Engineers, I know, is going to be a major issue for them, and we feel for those folks, but it was never the county's obligation to begin with, so. But yeah, it'll be going to every resident out there, not targeted at all. It's just to let everybody know that we've done our part.
See, this wasn't usual. It's fun.
Yeah, all right.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have anything else on your time?
I don't believe so, unless the commissioners have any questions or for me.
So, I mean, what is the long-term approach on White Canyon Road? Because it's not going away. It's just something somebody's going to have to
Well, they
figure
were
out
here
at some point in time.
talking about rerouting it. They had an engineer looking at it. I don't know.
We tried that non-willing seller.
Well, there was that first one was on the back
Mhm.
road, but then they came in. Looking at a different one. And I don't know
I
where.
think that one was really expensive if I remember, because it was through draws and hills and stuff.
Yeah, that one route was all through draws, but the other one was a good route.
But it went on somebody else's property,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
it was too expensive.
unless she, I don't know.
That's just a heck of a situation.
Yeah,
I mean, a perfect scenario is one by one, as they vacate those properties, we need to take them back or whatever.
Yeah.
Purchase them.
Yeah, I mean, or we could, you know, encourage them to apply for grants or something along that fact to where they can, if they can provide some state money or get some state money to help fund it. You know, that we can always revisit it, but as far as any obligations that the county has now or in the future is none. Um, the residents may not like that, but
Just mean future county commissions, well, beyond all of us, will continue to have the same issue.
well, they were in here at one time, and talked about. Said we have to set up a benefit district. To go ahead and upgrade all road upgrade. This
I don't even know how we
standards.
could, since it's not a county road.
No, what I'm saying is township, you know, that upgraded the township standards, so township has to take care of it.
Well, but it's on core property, so I don't know that the core would
Well,
allow
that's
it.
that one, there's a bunch of others, that's.
it's just
one
a small
road.
portion.
But there's other roads up there that just, it's bad shape. That's one that called me that. Neighbors were blocking one of them and.
Yeah.
It's pretty steep property out there.
Huh?
So it's pretty steep property out there.
Sure.
Should have never been built,
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Well, that's.
but they're there, so I don't know what anybody can do. So, the township.
All right. Anything else you commissioners would like to discuss? All right.
Give a while, it's still living.
Yeah. Oh,
Rich, is there another page that I go to bring my stuff, or do I just keep?
It's down there, keep going.
Keep going?
It's there.
Up there it is.
the equal. CC. CC.
Oh, that must not have gotten.
Oops. These two.
Probably gonna go on the lease thing. Let me look.
I asked him. It was on Tuesday, I know.
It's Tuesday first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything on Friday?
You're. You might.
Oh, he sent it in person. That's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't say
Yeah.
that. I wouldn't have sent it there. I just thought you. John.
Yeah, he sent it to me.
Okay, I can forward it to you, bro.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I didn't catch it, so.
Yeah, and normally he calls or texts, and that was.
Okay.
And I think he. See them on separately.
I sent separate.
Okay, that's right.
That was,
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't doing it with file. I just sent them individually.
Okay, yeah.
So this should be the right.
And honestly, I never looked to see if that actually came back to my personal.
It did.
Okay.
When I just forwarded it, it showed me, but when I went to type, when I just applied,
Yeah.
like I did. I took out 2 of the commissioners, plus 2 in there. And I didn't see that, like, doesn't show up, but now it's coming to you. So let me know if you have any questions for me. You're probably better check the other commissioners and see what email that went to.
Yeah, because he shot me a text and said, I sent an email with everybody on. Well, that's okay.
No, that's why I didn't know what I. Oh, shoot. Yeah, but so to be in the changes, just, yeah. Yes, that is the lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know where he came up with that.
yeah. I just heard.
Yeah.
One big piece.
Yeah, I-
Okay. At least I can see.
Yeah, it came to my person.
I saw that earlier.
Yeah. He does. I think it's. Agree or disagree, he. Gets
He has it correct, but.
Yeah, he really does.
He's-
It's being heard.
That's gonna be very, steer salt up. That's great.
Oh, YouTube's up on things. Yeah, it is.
My status, you don't have to look at it.
That's just interesting.
I thought I would see my kid watching the face.
Well, you don't want to do me if I've got a microphone where I can hear the reverb on it.
Yeah,
And,
well, it's
She
delayed
got lost too.
too. If you wave, it's like I'm waiting for that. It's delayed. Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Bowler with the Riley County Noxious Weed and Household Hazardous Waste Staff Update. I get my opportunity to sit at the podium and feel like an attorney. I used to only spend my time in the witness box. Thank you.
well, we could do something like that.
We could. So on the noxious weed side, all county roads have been sprayed for musk thistle and bindweed at least one time, and we're now going back and doing follow-up spraying on those. Contracts for townships have been completed with a total of 6 townships treated this year. And I should clarify, we will be going back for those that contracted for some spot spraying. We'll be doing that as well. So we're not completely done with township contracts. KDOT contract has begun and we'll continue with the spraying of Johnson grass. And this year we're going to kind of be focusing on K18 between Manhattan and Ogden. Got quite a bit of Johnson grass on state roads out there. The first round of mowing has been completed. We have had a very lush spring. Our vegetation is growing like crazy. In some areas, you can't tell that we've already mowed once. But we are right on time with the mowing. Having said that, I do have one employee that's been recovering from a surgery. It's been out for a couple of weeks. And so the second round may be delayed just a smidge. We hope to catch up fairly quickly. But folks will let me know and maybe let you know if the roads haven't been mowed and what they feel is a timely manner. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to catch up because we're maybe a little behind on round 2. We do have cost share chemical for sprayers and sprayers available this year because of the weather that we've had. Musk thistle has been rearing its head, and has been prominent this time of year. So be mindful of that. This time it's already gone to seed. So if I get a musk thistle complaint, I'm looking for a fall spraying at this point. And then on that topic, we do have cost share chemical for that. And this is a particular item I talked to the commissioners about prior about cost share chemical. And we have a few folks, very few, that try to take advantage that the county provides cost share chemical at a reduced cost, and they will try to circumvent the system and buy cost share chemical at a reduced price and use it for off target on noxious weeds. That's not uncommon, but we do have a few people that try to take advantage of it. So we have 95 pages of state statute as it relates to noxious weed. It's actually called the Commissioner's Handbook. So I'm certain that the commissioners aren't familiar with all 95 statutes. That's what you pay me for. But one of them in particular states that cost share chemical cannot be for off-target noxious weed use. They're very specific about that. And the weeds have to be present. You have to have noxious weeds present. So at the county, we want to make it readily available that chemical can be obtained in a reduced cost manner, in an efficient manner. But at the same time, we have to make sure we're in compliance with state law. So I am looking to implement some what I will call guidelines, internal guidelines. I've been working closely with the Kansas Department of Ag on these regulations, and I would like to just go through them for you real quickly. The first 2 we've always had in place, and that's the property must be within Riley County to purchase chemical, and the chemical must be used for the treatment of noxious weeds. It's fairly straightforward. Those have been the only 2 rules we've had. Unfortunately, folks still try to take advantage and manipulate. So we've added a few others. The third one will be any chemical purchase beyond 65 gallons total in a spray season will require a land inspection, meaning I'll need to go out and see that you have that many weeds. We've come up with 65 gallons to give the commissioners an idea. That will treat well over 100 acres of noxious weeds. So if you have more than 100 acres of noxious weeds, I need to know about it anyway. But that represents 65 gallons represents 95% of our chemical sales. Most folks come in buy less than 65 gallons. Those that try to manipulate the system can try to buy 1 or 2 pallets, 360 gallons at a time. Obviously, we need to stop that. So landowners must be present at the time of purchase. One buyer will not be allowed to purchase for several landowners. Recently, we tried to put a 50-gallon limit. I then had this individual's, literally their brother, their son, and their next door neighbor call in and want 50 gallons each. And so we've got to try to prevent that from happening. The 5th one will be payment for chemical will be required upon purchase. This one might surprise commissioners, but for several years, we have allowed folks to purchase chemical and then pay for it at a later date. That's been around for a while, but hopefully when we reduce the amount they're purchasing, we can make payment at the time of purchase.
Six will be all sales will be final. We have had some attempts at the end of the spray season for folks that didn't use maybe 10 gallons of glyphosate, try to return that. And so we're wanting to make that all sales are final. And then finally, the last one will be a bit of a catch-all. If there are any facts or circumstances at the time of purchase that would indicate the purchase of chemical is not in compliance with state law, and then a land inspection will be required. This is really nothing new than what we've been doing. They're just adding some specifics, giving us some additional guidelines. So when my folks sell chemicals, we want to make sure that we've presented this. I have talked with Vivian. We will be putting this out publicly. But at this point, this is all to ensure we're in compliance with state law. And if the commissioners have any questions about those, I'm happy to try to answer those. If you have concerns about any of those specifics, I do not think that you will receive any phone calls, with the exception of maybe a few individuals that maybe have been taking advantage of this, that may have some concerns over it. But we need to be in compliance with state law, and Kansas Department of Ag is really starting to put a closer eye on this. There have been some counties, not ours, that I mean, they may have $500,000 in chemical sales a year. By comparison, we have about 70,000. So some things are needed to change, and these are some rules that we've put in place just to make sure that everybody knows up front. Really no different than what we have been doing. It's just a matter of saying these are some changes. On the HHW side, we do have a collection on Saturday, July 12th from 8 to noon. The Raleigh County HHW facility does have recycled latex paint to give away. Again, that's wildly popular. Carts remain available outside at the HHW for drop off for material 24/7. And then Justin Brenner and I attended training, lithium ion battery training at the South Metro in Parker, Colorado. We also had the opportunity to tour Green Sheen Recycle Paint Company in Denver. Colorado has implemented a program called Paint Safe. And what that is when individuals buy gallons of paint at Home Depot or wherever, there is a 25% processing fee at the end of that. And that process fee helps their HHWs in the collection of waste paint, the disposal of it. It helps pay for HHWs. That particular law is in place in 12 other states in the United States, and it does help relieve some of the cost associated and handed down to the counties for the processing of paint. We have something similar here in the state of Kansas on herbicide. All herbicides you purchase for ag use has a deposit on it as well. And the county, we get reimbursed, or the cost of covering the disposal of the containers is paid for. That's something maybe folks don't know about, but we have a similar deal, but it has to do with ag chemicals. But we were very gracious. They were gracious hosts. We had some excellent training out there, and thank you, Commission, for allowing us to attend that. And the final photograph I have is poison hemlock. This photograph there on your right is a stage of growth about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's now turned a bit of a yellow color. The photograph on your left was taken last year in a residence here in Manhattan, right next to a playground. This particular plant, it gets a lot of attention on Facebook. Sometimes this time of year, people have had horrific allergic reactions to it. It can be fatal if it's ingested just a little bit, and there is no known antidote to this particular plant. And so I just thought that'd kind of be the plant of the month, if you will. I've talked about it before, but just giving people photographs of what it looks like. It is turning more of a yellow color right now. It won't have the white blooms on it. It'll be more yellow. What's important to know is this plant stays toxic even throughout the fall and the winter. When it goes completely dormant, it still remains toxic. Unlike some other toxic plants, when they die and go dormant, they're no longer viable for that reason.
Michael, how big are those stalks? How big around are they?
They can, the plant itself, poison hemlock, gets very tall. It gets almost 6 foot tall, and it gets there very quickly in the spring. Its growth cycle, like I said, it's right at its end of its growth cycle. But if you travel along Marlette right now, look back towards the K-State properties, alongside the ditch there, you'll see 6 and 7 foot tall poison hemlock. I will mention that poison hemlock is not a noxious weed. It's indigenous to Kansas. We don't intentionally spray for it. Having said that, we do solid spray our ditches in the county, and the chemical we use will treat poison hemlock, but it's not a target noxious weed. It will have very distinct kind of purplish veining in it, and the stalks, specific to your question, are about a 1/4 inch in diameter.
So I thought I had some in my backyard, but the stalks get, maybe an inch.
Well, it could be at a
And
smaller.
real fibrous.
Yeah, if you're cutting it off and it's regrowing, the leaves are very distinctive. It's actually part of the carrot family. And so the leaves are very fern-like. The leaves are very distinctive. Once you see the leaves, you'll know immediately. It's very easily to identify. Even in smaller stages of growth, it'll have the fern-like leaf on it. And once you see that fern-like leaf, you can identify it very easily. Very distinct leaves on it. Yes,
Hey,
sir.
Mike, I just have one small suggestion for the regulations that you're talking about,
Yes, sir.
and that's on number 7.
Uh-huh.
I would recommend having just like a qualifier that the department head of noxious weeds is going to be the one that determines whether or not the facts or circumstances at the time of purchase indicate that the purchase chemical is not compliant.
Okay,
So that way you don't have to have any fights that you can make that call.
sure. I'll probably just have you maybe text me that verbatim, and I'll put it in there verbatim that way. So that is your recommendation.
Sure.
That would be great. Does the commissioner specifically have any questions about those conditions? Again, that's just to ensure that we are in compliance with the state law. It's a matter of we've got to make sure that we're preventing the non-off target chemical.
Will you send those out to your typical buyers, the set of the rules?
It's certainly something we could, that we do. I do know of the particular handful of buyers that buy us a larger amount of chemical that this will be affecting. I certainly can do that if that's what the commissioners would like. I can certainly do that. I'm happy to do that. I just didn't want to maybe seem antagonistic by doing
That's
that.
true.
So I had kind of considered just saying, these are the rules, they apply to everybody. And as folks, we may see something as, by next spring, we'll probably not hear anything until some particular individuals come in and try to purchase again next year. And then I would anticipate my phone ringing and possibly yours ringing. But
If you type, print out a sheet of them, and people have questions, and here they are.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's the plan. They will be prominently posted at our point of sale. And there will be some changes. We have allowed people to purchase on credit and pay us a couple of months. So it's going to take some implementation. It's going to take some getting used to, but like I said, 95% of our sales are not over 65 gallons. And so 95% of the folks that come in there, this will not affect them at all. Any further questions, commissioners?
Well, we spraying for binding.
Mhm.
Is it kill all grass? If you got something that didn't kill all grass, just it's the bindweed or?
Well, we will use,
There's some back in my backyard that's just, I tried spraying some stuff and that stuff is aggressive.
well, a few things about bindweed. Bindweed has a growth taproot on it that can go 30 feet into the ground. So the chemical you're using, it's important to use the right amount on really any plant, but bindweed in particular. You may be using the right product, but you may be using too much of it. And too much of it is going to just kill the top part of the plant. Plants are remarkable for survival. They'll let you take an arm or a leg and they'll keep their core alive underground. And so if you kill bindweed too quickly, if you really kill any plant too quickly, you're not letting the plant take it down into the system. Yes. So 2,4-D is a non-selective herbicide that we can use on bindweed.
I'm gonna drown that sucker.
If you're using too much in like any 2,4-D, it hurts other plants. It says it won't kill them, but 2,4-D on grass can stunt grass growth. It might not kill it, but it certainly can stunt it. But you'd really want to look at, make sure you're using the appropriate amount per label. And if you're kind of just adding some and you think, well, if some's good, a lot more might be better, that's not the right answer. Not the right answer.
Does 2,4-D affect the ornamental grasses?
It does not. It only affects broadleaf, a broadleaf plant, anything with a large plant, think dandelion, think
Okay.
that sort of thing. But again,
It's gotten in there, right? He's like choking them off this year. They're having trouble growing because and I've been trying to pull it out.
and that's the problem. If bindweed gets into soybean or something like that, then 2,4-D can affect your crop, and so that therefore it's a problem. So if it does get in your garden, if you have broadleaf stuff, 2,4-D will kill that. Grass, it will not.
That's the worst spot. It seems to be choking off. Getting in there and wrapping around the fundamental stuff there.
And in early stage of growth, that's why bindweed, we want to treat it in its early stage of growth. Once it's this time of year, it's gotten pretty carried away. It's got a really good taproot. We want more early spring. Early spring, when it's pushing its proteins up, that's when the plants must blow. Good question, though. Bindweed, it's a tough one. It's not going away anytime soon. Good questions. Any further, commissioners? Greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
This, everybody's sitting out of. Empty chairs. Everybody moved.
Morning, commissioners. Anna
It's like
Burson,
church. Sorry.
Anna Burson here with the my staff update for the appraiser's office. Again, our personal property and appraisal support team, we're preparing for that legislative change as it pertains to our personal property. And we're processing changes as they're still received. They're building and managing the residential work files relating to our annual review, sales review, and building permits. We're also reviewing all of the field appraisal work to ensure complete and accurate data entry. The ag appraiser is working through our annual review, verifying ag use on the properties. Didn't return their ag maps in 24. There are roughly 19 ag land sales and 4 farm home sites that have sold to date. On the residential side, we have 408 residential sales to date. Our median sale price is $250,000 and an average sale price of $274,195. Currently, our sales ratio for 2025, again, still looking at our unvalidated sales, is right at 95%. We'll begin sales validation for 2025 sales this month. There are 193 new permits for 25, 286 rechecks from 2024 and prior years, some things still kind of lingering open. Our residential teams completed roughly 51% of the annual review for 2025. There are 195 vacant lots vacant lots due for review and 34 vacant land sales to date. On the commercial side, they're working through our annual review, preparing for Board of Tax Appeals hearings. And the commercial annual review is roughly 70% complete so far. There's 12 commercial sales to date. 1 exempt property has also sold. Just to kind of, I'll get to it when we get to the exemptions. BOTA update. So it's kind of difficult to see on this screen, but all of that in green is going to go away once we get the official BOTA decision back. So those were the ones we talked about. There was a stipulation. Certainly, if you have any questions, we can discuss that. But I'm happy to announce that as of right now, those that will still be outstanding from 2020, most of those are going to be wrapped up, besides just that Walgreens case. And that one is scheduled. It's a big chunk.
And look at where they're all at too.
So
They're all at north.
there were.
They're all part of that tip that's coming up. I think every single one of them, actually. Right. West Loop, I guess there's one West Loop. Oh, the rest of them.
On pending exemptions, there's not been a whole lot of activity with movement on these that have been pending at Boda. One did come off of the pending and went to exempt. We have added 3 that have been, they were received, but there's some information still missing. So we're still waiting for some information from Be Able on the ones that they've brought to our office. But I anticipate those will be going to the board in the near future. One thing about exemptions and going back on the tax roll, it's black and white. If a property transfers ownership, it goes back on the tax roll. It doesn't mean it has to be a sale. It just means the ownership itself is changing. And so that's one thing where we don't see when we're reporting sales, there was an exempt property that did sell, it went back on the tax roll. We also have had some exempt properties transfer. And so when that happens, it does require a new application for exemption. Exemptions, so in other projects, exemptions is on that list of other projects specifically because we've had to, we don't have to, but we are sending letters to some property owners when it's been discovered that those properties are not being used for the exempt purposes that were originally granted and being placed back on the tax rolls. And so, if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. But that's the other instance where that can happen. Additionally, when a brand new structure is built on an exempt property, just because the property was historically exempt doesn't mean that structure automatically becomes exempt. In a lot of cases, we're going to need new applications for exemption for the new structures. Major changes or changes in use. So that's just for information, just so you are aware. Budgets, lots of looking at budgets, training. We are doing a lot of field training, office training, quality control, reteaching, learning, all those things going on in our office. And that is all I have. Do you have any questions for me at this time? Anything presented? Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Next commissioner, you have amend web 9:45.
Overrides and it's like.
Well,
You guys said that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have default to go to my office and I have to switch things. I assume we got to your office. Yeah, but I want to talk here. Makes sense.
I'm not gonna. Just so everybody knows, I am not here on Monday, so you won't see me Monday. Steve will be coming with budget presentation. So that's another item, but it's a surprise. Okay. The bigger the one day is this 30 event. Shares.
Yeah, it should be pretty quiet in the next few years. Whole last month is that's what we're saying, discussion, just issues. Anybody else? I think they were gonna wait till the city comes down. Then go from tomorrow. Um. I like the best career. She's all. This been great. It says be great grandfather goes and see the kid. I'll start on the. So get them. Let's see, it's be so far. Look at the list out through the annotations. I think if I remember right, it was about. I was about 3 months.
Yeah, I guess that's not.
Well, I gave you a list of open ones and then, one of them actually was getting, it's so typical. Well, you heard the.
But they help save it.
Yeah. It's copy. Yes. But I don't know, I mean, yeah, she moved over to Owego because she wanted to be a small practice. She may not have.
I forgot.
Yeah, he did. Oh, it was. I was a big surrey.
Yeah, I remember.
Actually,
I just think so. Yes. This is also a chance to serve. Potentially, if it happens.
I figured it out. We can tell you some things you might feel, well, you did, but outside of that, yeah. It's all you need.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Webb, Planning Director. I know I have to project my voice a little bit more than normal, so let me know if, okay.
Part of that's probably there.
I always feel like I'm yelling. But
You're always so quiet.
I know. All right, so I'm here with Planning Development's monthly staff update for you all. And as we always do, let's start with Keats. As I was just talking to Commissioner Foki about, we have a gentleman, Austin Masters, who was with USDA Rural Development for many, many years, dealing with Keats. He's now with the Midwest Assistance Program, MAP, and has been able to keep a hold of Keats. So he came to visit me yesterday and we talked a little bit about Keats, and we actually went out and took a site visit out there. It had been a while, honestly, since I'd been out to the full district. So, and he hadn't been out there yet. So we went out yesterday, we braved the heat. I have some nice itchy bug bites to show for it. But it was good to get out there and, you know, get back out into that community and, you know, see things. I was able to kind of point out where things are, you know, where the lagoon is going to go, and, you know, some of the different properties that'll need more permanent easements, things like that. So I appreciate him coming to visit and that we were able to get out there yesterday afternoon. So in terms of the easements, we're still working on them. Basically, Charleston Wilson is still working on title information for us, or kind of giving us a few 3, 4 here at a time. Reminder, we have about 15 properties that need permanent easements, and then all of them need temporary easements for installation and maintenance and whatnot. Let's see, so we're working on, BG is working on the legal descriptions for the permanent easements themselves, and then exhibits for the temporary, again, looking at where the lines are going to go on the property, where they're going to connect to the house, where their existing infrastructure is, because of course that's all going to be decommissioned as part of the project. So they're working on that, and then we are working on, I like to say we, but really it's Jacob, who is working on the, you know, the overall easement documentation that then the legals and the exhibits will be plopped into. So we got all kinds of people working on different pieces for this. It's probably still going to be throughout the summer that, you know, because as we're working on it, because, you know, Charleston Wilson needs a bit of time to do some of that research, but we are all still well within our funding agency timelines. No concerns there. We're just fine. We're keeping everybody up to date and getting through it. So, and again, we talked to all the property owners that need permanent easements, so they're aware. And we've made, you know, as much information available as possible to everybody, so they know basically what they're dealing with, essentially. Once we get enough information, enough property information from Charleston Wilson, we'll probably go back out late summer, maybe into September, go back out into the community, have that information for folks, kind of arrange, you know, we'll have a notary with us, we'll have people with us to make this as easy as possible to both explain what's happening to people, again, because we, you know, we've been trying to explain to folks as we've been going, but, you know, get out there with them. Here's what you're looking at. Here's what this does. Here's what we're needing you to sign and why. And hey, we have somebody right here. We have a notary right here for you to sign. We're really going to try to make this as easy as possible and understandable as possible for folks. So even though we know it's a tricky thing, you know, not everybody loves it. We totally understand, but I think people have been a lot more understanding and on board as we've made a lot more progress towards this. So any questions with Keats?
Are you buying some extra fireworks? Just when we award the contract for that project, need this.
Yeah, we did.
Yes. That's a good idea. Right. I know we should, yeah, fireworks and celebrate every step along this way, right? That we've been doing so far. So, yeah. So our comprehensive plan update, I was able to give a presentation to the Intergovernmental Luncheon Group a couple weeks ago, so I was glad to have that opportunity. We're still just going along with things. We will have our next community workshop. It's scheduled for Tuesday, August 5th, 6:00 p.m. That's going to be in Sykes Venue in Leonardville. We wanted to get up north to kind of, you know, take our show on the road, if you will, to get to different folks. We'll be talking a lot more about that, making sure people are aware of it, spreading the word, getting that advertisement out, if you will, so people are aware of that opportunity. Working with Stantec, they'll do a presentation, they'll have some activities and some updates. So they're kind of working on some of the content piece of that, and we're working on just making sure people are aware of this opportunity to come on out, and we'll get their input. They'll see what's going on and, get that information out. Let's see, so we are having discussions on designated growth areas. If you recall, all of the 4 small cities would like to leave theirs as is. Manhattan, we're matching what they already have. We're not reinventing any wheels there. They're already well established where, they want their growth to occur, and they're looking out over their comp plan boundary. So we're just basically matching all of those, but then we're looking at expanding or adding other areas that aren't necessarily attached to just city boundaries. And that's all 5 of the cities, not just Manhattan. So we're looking at other areas right now. In a couple of weeks, I'll have the draft economic development goals before you folks for discussion. I was going to have it, I think, last week, but just reviewing the draft I got from Stantec, it's just not quite ready. So we're kind of going through and kind of doing some edits to make sure we're a little bit better tailored to Riley County before we really get into those in-depth conversations with you folks in the public. But the Economic Development Advisory Board and our Economic Development Subcommittee has been reviewing those, and I do have some comments from them, so appreciate that. So we're just going along on that project. Any questions on that? So speaking of REDAB, the Rural Economic Development Advisory Board, they're still working on their mission and direction. They, of course, appreciated all your input that you shared at their meetings earlier this year. And I'm working with them to coordinate. I think I'd mentioned to you folks, I'm working with them to coordinate maybe a regular time, either if it's monthly or every other month, where one of them can come to you folks, get on your agenda regularly and, present, here's what we're doing in our committee meetings, here's, some ideas, that sort of thing. So we're still kind of working on that. We're still talking about that. Brittany joined us at our last meeting, and I'm appreciative to her just to talk about the county's economic development policies and the fund. They were asking some questions about wanting to understand how all of that works. So appreciate that she was able to attend that last meeting and give us some insight on that. And she has graciously agreed if we have any further questions or if we would like her to attend any future meetings, she'll do that. So just really good information for them to have. Let's see. So Solid Waste Management Committee, it is July already. So that means fair's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So we're still working on getting my volunteer shifts filled for our fair booth that we'll have at the fair again this year. Those be year 3. So I've gotten most of them filled. I have a few more folks I'm still working on. But we will be there every evening of the fair with our solid waste information, our battery recycling stuff. We have activities for kids. Last year we had the bale of cans that Greg from Howie's let us borrow. That was the most popular with kids and adults. It's like I think I showed pictures of to you guys last year, but it's literally this cube of crushed cans, and the activity is, guess how many cans are in the cube, and people just wanted to touch it and pick it up and look. I mean, kids, adults, it was just the most popular. So he has agreed to let us borrow that again this year. So, and we'll have other activities as well. So we're excited for that. Let's see, the LEPP, the Local Environmental Protection Program grant through KDHE. We are wrapping that one up for our first year. That ended on June 30th. So I'm working on our grant closeouts, basically reporting and whatnot for this month. We were able to expend all of the $50,000 that we were allocated from KDHE. So it took some effort. We wanted to make sure people were aware of it, but we got a lot of applications. We got a lot of interest in it. So we were glad for that. And we were able to help, let's see, 3 people total, which I know does not sound like a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it is still worth. One of them, we were able to give 100% for an alternative system. They had no other choice. They were not going to be able to do it without this grant. Because of this grant, they were able to put in an alternative system, which, as you folks know, is pretty expensive. And so we were able to cover that for them. And then the other ones were able to cover a good chunk, a significant chunk of their repair and replacement as well. So So we're working to close all of that out. And again, we did spend all of our money. We did help, several folks in our community, and we actually have several more on deck for the next round. We did get awarded funds for their 2026 year that starts actually July 1 through next June 30. We probably won't get our money. They have to go through concurrency and do all of that. So we won't get the funds allocated until probably next month or September. But we already have a couple of folks carried over from our previous round that we've identified are eligible and that we can help. So we have their information. It's just a matter of waiting for the funding to come through, and then we'll already be able to hit the ground running and get more people help with that. So let's see. So jumping down a little bit to everybody's favorite topic, short-term rental regulations. As you know, we've been working on some amendments that you folks had initiated earlier this year. We're working with our planning boards to of course go through the formal process. Of course, is the planning boards review. Once they have some language to recommend, we have a public hearing before both of those boards, and then it comes back to you folks for, of course, final decision. We did it a little bit differently this time because, of course, we workshop those items with you folks first based on the conversations we had from KAC last year. And so we did a lot of that with you folks up front. I will tell you the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board had a lot of questions, a lot of suggestions, a lot of different things they're wanting to explore. So we're going to bring some language back to, or some, I don't know that I want to say language yet, but at least some options, some discussion points back to both of our planning boards this month and next month. To see, what they're comfortable with recommending. Again, that all they do is recommend, and it's still up to you folks what you want to do. But I'd like to get them comfortable with what they're recommending and basically on the same page before we would go to a public hearing, and then before it would come to you folks who, again, then can, give your input and say, no, I don't want any of that. Let's go back to what we originally said, or let's do nothing at all. So.
I personally think we need to start working with our legislators on this, because if we don't,
Yeah.
half of what we're doing here has no teeth. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But if we don't get some changes at the state level, this is all.
And I know that was something.
We're not doing anything, but we're kind of spinning our tires at the same.
Yeah, and I know that was something we were originally talking about with our last legislative session.
Correct.
And I don't think anything happened this year with the state.
It was because everything moved so fast, we just couldn't.
Yeah.
And we had new legislators.
Right, yeah.
We really need to start that process soon.
Yeah.
At least bring dialogue up and start having the conversation, and then
Yeah.
you move into January and things start getting going, you've got a foundation already.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we've had to kind of explain it to some folks who have, a little extra concern about, STRs and our regulations. We do need help from the state. I mean, as you just said, there's a lot of things we just don't have the teeth, and we need to be granted those teeth essentially. We can add, regs all we want, and the people who are already going to meet the regulations will just keep meeting them. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get 100% compliance all the time. And if we don't have a mechanism to uphold that, yeah, it gets a little tricky. So I was going to have with you folks probably in the next few weeks I think we've done it before, but it's been a while, a code enforcement 101, just to kind of go over our code enforcement process again. Because I think there are also just some confusion out there, how we do things and why we do what we do. And, when something is, still just a complaint versus, elevated to a violation. And really, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. We really do try to work with people. We try to gain compliance. That's really what we're after. So we can talk more if that's something you guys are interested in. We can talk more about that just to make sure, it's understandable kind of what our process is and what we do. And I think that's all I have. Did you have any questions for me or anything else you want to hear about? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, is that any more question?
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, fair enough.
Going until 10:30, Jacob.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna move the county commissioners, including Chairman McKinley, Vice Chair Foki, and Commissioner Ford, with Jacob Hansen, interim county counselor, and a Mercer County appraiser, and John Elman, Public Works Director, recessed into executive session pursuant to the attorney-client consultation exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act regarding confidential legal advice of sewer district into, and the open meeting to resume in the county commission chamber at 10:30 AM. Yes. Yeah.
Need a second.
You need a second.
I need a second.
Oh, second, sorry.
It's a new and second for the county commission to recess in an executive session. The reasons previously stated under the current client consultation exception. The Kansas Open Meeting Act. All in favor?
Aye.
And commissioners, the meeting is live.
Go ahead and move that the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session.
I'll second that.
The moved and seconded, the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session, all in favor.
Aye.
Also move that the record reflect actions on taken consistent with the consensus reached in executive session.
I would second that.
The moved and seconded, the record reflect actions that we taken consistent with the consensus reached in executive session, all in favor.
Aye.
Hi. Not as much space on this podium. I don't know how to take notes. You ready for me?
Yes.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Phillips, Budget and Finance Officer, here to present first a PowerPoint regarding the consequences of going below revenue neutral, and then we'll get into the rest of our budget work session. So first, the first slide talks about what is revenue neutral rate. So this shouldn't really be a surprise to any of you. We've been doing this for a few years now. And the goal of revenue neutral is to maintain a fiscal balance while achieving other policy objectives. So what does going below R&R mean? So the government collects less revenue than needed to remain neutral. It indicates a net revenue loss post-policy implementation, and it can happen due to overly generous offsets, underestimated costs, or reduced economic activity. Some of these consequences are budget deficits, underfunded public services, increased need for borrowing or spending cuts, and pressure on other tax bases to make up the shortfall. The economic and social impacts, reduced investment in infrastructure, education, or healthcare, potential inequity if benefits are unevenly distributed, public dissatisfactions with service cuts or rising debts, and risk of downgraded credit ratings. And that's like for our bonds. So I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So next you have the policy and political risk. So erosion of trust in fiscal policy or reform intentions, risk of policy reversal or legal challenges, and undermines the credibility of future reforms. And how to avoid falling below R&R. So conduct thorough economic impact modeling. This is something we pretty regularly do. I think we all talk about it. We look at the services, we look at the impact, and we discuss that, what that impact would be to our constituents. Regular audits and adjustments. As you know, we have an audit every single year. Ensure realistic assumptions and adequate buffer zones, and improve transparency and stakeholder communication. So, conclusion, staying at or above the revenue neutral is critical for policy credibility and fiscal stability. Falling below may lead to deficits, service disruptions, and political consequences. And prudent planning and adaptive management are key. Are there any questions about any of this? Perfect. So we will move on. So I updated the budget development worksheet, the memo. This is a list of the changes that were made since the last BOCC presentation. So ITGIS reduced by 40,000, Appraiser reduced by 2,000. Animal shelter was reduced to 35,000 to reflect the contract changes. Phone services, line and general services was at 102,000, we decreased that to 50, and then elections was reduced by 17,000. EMS reduced by 7,000, and the health department was reduced by $338,027. So I sent an email to you all on Tuesday in regards to all of these cuts. So the health department it's large, but part of that is because they have a workforce development grant that goes until 2027. And as of January, they had $141,616 remaining in that fund. We talked about, Diane and Kaylin presented a while ago that WIC was lost some funding, that was statewide. In conversations with Diane this week, WIC did not get allocated any more money after, we sent the letter. So to make up for some of that shortfall, they have been discussing internally about using the workforce development funds to supplement that $129,000 shortfall, which would mean that we would not have as much going into the 2026 budget. Another portion of the reduction was because all hands on deck got extended into 2026. It was originally planned to end in 2025. They still have funds, so they're able to move forward with that through 2026. And then the other portion is due to an employee that is set to retire at the end of November. And they have decided not to budget for the position for a portion of the beginning of 2026. This is not something that we typically do. And I think you guys have seen, we've had this happen in another department. And it kind of came back and we had to come back and have like, I think we had 15 different scenarios on how we were going to make that up. So that would not be my recommendation, to not budget for that position. They also cut out overtime in a lot of their divisions. Again, that would not be my recommendation, just because that's something you never really know what could happen, especially with health. So that brings us to our worksheet. So we're now at 2.369 is the difference from our previous budget year. You guys have also asked us to review services. We have, I'll bring Shiloh up so she can answer some questions. I sent you guys information about the treasurer's office and areas she's looking to cut. Noxious Weed has their state contract that is a potential we could cut as well. Public Works is looking at, we do county parks. Now this has been in place since 1965 due to a resolution that was passed then. This is something that statutorily you are not obligated to do, but that would be a decision you would need to decide on what to do with. And then Health Department is evaluating childcare licensing services, and we're also talking, we talked about WIC. It's not cutting WIC or anything, just talking about the plan for the future, like what's going to happen, especially with that shortfall this year. And as of when I left my office, they are still debating the bill on the House floor. It's not really so much a debate as a filibuster. So they are, the one gentleman's been talking for 5 hours. So that is where they are at with that so far. I've never watched a bill so closely in my life. It's kind of consumed my time, even when I'm not in the office. So just trying to watch that to see what that impact could be for the agencies that we have within Riley County Health Department. And it's something Diane and I talked about this week. So I stand for your questions, and I'd like to bring Shiloh up, if that is okay with you.
Good morning. So, when you started talking about looking at services, I know my office has been pretty public about, we've been trying to, for going on 6 years, trying to figure out ways to fund motor vehicle services that are a state mandated function. Yes, a portion of what we do is collecting property tax that does stay here in Riley County and into our communities, but it is overall a state mandated function, and the fees have not increased in coordination with cost of living or inflation or anything. I mean, we've been operating with the same fees since what I think the 1970s. So with just very small incremental increases. So we have been trying to work with the legislator and trying to get get something passed, but obviously we've been unsuccessful. So I did take your request to look at services very seriously. And so the memo that Brittany sent to you outlines the areas that I identified that are not necessarily statutorily required, and that by implementing some changes, we could see some cost savings. And I'm going to kind of talk about these in order of what I think we should look at first, just from a standpoint of what I think would be the easiest. I'll say the first service that I will talk about is the driver's license services. In 2024, we processed about 3,500 transactions, and which generated $17,500 in revenues. We charge $5 for every driver's license transaction that we perform in the office. We have one dedicated employee that works in that area every day. But driver's license is not a mandated function. We have done it as a courtesy, I believe, since sometime in the 80s, late 80s, maybe 90s. So I know it was something that Eileen King had brought back after attending the National Treasurers Association meeting, and saw that there's other states that their treasurer's offices also provide driver's license services. What I would recommend that we could cut that service, and then I would not fill a position through attrition. I do have an employee that is going to be retiring in October. And if I cut driver's license services, I don't feel like I would have to fill that position, and therefore would potentially have a cost savings to the county of a little more than $50,000. The drawbacks to that would be, there is not a full service office actually in Riley County. It is located on the Platte County side, as you know. Not a huge, for the Manhattan people, but for your ones further up north, but they could also go to a full service office closer to them anyway. You don't have to go to your county to do your driver's license. So, but from a morale standpoint, I will speak to is that being trained for driver's license services in my office is a way that we were able to promote staff. Talking to some of my employees that have been here for much longer than even I have, when we first started doing driver's license, that wasn't a promotable task. They just were expected to do it, and there was a lot of turnover. Because there was stagnant, there was no place for growth, there was no place for employees to move. So therefore, the treasurer's office was kind of like the stepping stone. You got your foot in the door at the county, and then as better opportunities came up, they went elsewhere. And so there is a cost associated with recruiting and having to hire new employees all the time. However, I think if you want to look at a service that is not mandated, not required, that is the one that I would look at first. The second big item is our commercial and IRP services. The state, in my opinion, has done a disservice to all the counties by not requiring every single county to do these services for the customers in their counties. They made it optional for some counties to opt in. Most of your large counties, your Johnson County and Shawnee County, and I believe Wyandotte, they don't do commercial vehicle work. So those are some very large communities. And I know other counties like Anderson County, they get a lot of those transactions from the eastern side of the state. A lot of them do go to the state office in Topeka. There is a state office that does handle some of these as well. the problem with commercial vehicles is that commercial vehicles are renewed by fleet. So I will use one of our one of our larger commercial customers here in Riley County. They have many fleets, and a lot of their fleets have vehicles that are in various counties. So there really is no way even for us to just say, we're just going to do Riley County, because there would be potentially, we would be renewing some out of county vehicles, but you could say we would only service Riley County customers. This other problem I have with this is we generate about $60,000 in revenues. If we only serviced Riley County, that revenue would cut in about a third, because we would go from servicing 358 customers to about 100 customers if we just looked at Riley County. However, I don't see by cutting that service happens in such a short period of time. It's January and February. We are able to get these customers serviced. We're not doing any overtime. It's not putting an over, our staff isn't over burdened. I can't really put a number on that. I would be able to cut an employee that is really only heavily used in January and February for this function to see what the cost, to create a cost savings to offset the loss of revenue. So I think I would just highly recommend you really seriously consider whether that is an area you want to cut, because I, hate to pat ourselves on the back, but my staff is very well versed on performing these transactions. They've got it down to a science. And so that's why people from Saline County, Dickinson County, Marshall County are coming here to do those IRP transactions. Also, I will mention on IRP, we are only one of 9 counties that do that function. And we were asked by the state, because of our high level of work and how well we do it, to take on that as well. I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying that I would just, it is a source of revenue right now. I also look, because once again, I took this very seriously. You asked what we could. This is another area that I hope you don't choose to follow through with, but the building receptionist. Before COVID, we did not have a building receptionist. It was, the clerk's office handled the main phone line. People would come in our office. We did, at one point, we had a kiosk that they could log themselves in line. Our current queuing system does have a kiosk option. We could implement that again. We could go back to assigning one of our offices to answer that main phone line, or we could, work with IT and maybe get an automated where press 1 to go to the treasurer's office, etc. But that has kind of become the face of that office building. And so, that position welcomes people into the building. They not only direct people in our office, but they, direct people on the whole campus, the whole downtown campus. It does help with customer satisfaction, because she is able to, triage some of those customers as they walk in the door. Oh, you just have a lien release? I can take that. We can process it. You don't even have to wait in line, whereas if we go back to a kiosk function, people have to wait in line just to hand us a piece of paper that they don't necessarily, that could be done. Once again, not saying that I couldn't work with Vivian on some sort of, education campaign. Hey, did you know you could just drop this off in the Dropbox? Just saying it's not a completely undoable solution, but it is an option. And then the last area that I will talk about is an implementation of a facility fee. This doesn't involve cutting any employees or cutting services, but it would be a potential new revenue. So back in 2013, the legislature implemented or passed a statute that would allow county treasurer's offices to use a facility fee. That you would charge that fee for customers that actually come into the office to do the work. It's kind of been a controversial fee because some counties have multiple locations where they would charge that facility fee for the annex, but not necessarily the main office. If we have one place where you can come do your motor vehicle work, and that's in the county office building that our citizens have already paid for. So it seems, does seem really fair to charge them a fee to come into the office to do the work. But it was put there so that we could charge it and help offset some of the costs for having staff in the office to do the work. The other problem with it is that it is I will call it kind of a hidden fee because the customer doesn't know about it until they come into the office. So you come into the office with your renewal notice, and if we start implementing this fee, we would tell the customer it's not $100, but it's $100, $102.50. And what's that? Why isn't it doesn't match your renewal notice? Well, because we charge a facility fee. Other offices are utilizing it because of this need to increase their revenues. And I estimated that it would generate approximately, I'm going to say between $50,000 and $75,000 of additional revenue if we implemented the facility fee. I will also mention that as we've been working with the legislature trying to get our motor vehicle fee bill passed, they have repeatedly asked, well, how come all of your counties we gave you this option for additional revenue. Why aren't you all using it? So I feel like they're kind of pushing back on us saying, well, until you start using all the tools we've given you, why should we, go to bat even further? $2.50 on each transaction is not going to, once again, bring us totally fully funding motor vehicle, but it would make a dent. And therefore, if I had that additional revenue, that would increase what I would budget to transfer back for what general fund is covering the motor vehicle labor expenses. So with that, those were the suggestion or my research that I did. It was not easy, and none of these decisions are going to be easy. And I feel as the elected official in charge of this office, yes, it does come down to, my decision, but I have to go by what you provide my budget. And if you tell me you're not going to, give me enough budget, I will make these decisions. But I guess I would just ask that we would work together and you would have my back and I have your back, because I'm elected as well, and it could have an impact on, what it looks like in 4 years from now.
Well, I appreciate you doing all that work. I love you. And going just in reverse order, that the fee, that doesn't sound that good. Like I say, because the state won't pay, and I didn't know you're saying they're saying, well, you should be doing it.
No.
And it'll irritate people the first time, but then like everything else, you get used to it.
We're trying to offset property tax.
Sure.
And have some kind of a revenue source in order to accomplish that. And it is absolutely the number one thing that I hear. I don't like increasing fees, or adding fees at all, but I'm offsetting one basically with the other one. It's like $50,000 to $75,000 of property tax. Then it doesn't have to get paid somewhere along into the equation.
I will also mention that the Treasurers Association is looking at working on a marketing campaign statewide to have in our offices to show why we are either cutting services or adding these kind of things to offset the fees that we're not getting from the state. So that is definitely a possibility.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
We're
Building
all paying
receptionist instead of a kiosk that annoys, because there are people that do that now, different doctors' offices are getting that way, and it annoys the heck out of them. I think it is, like I say, it helps when somebody comes in, because we've got offices in that building, the other building, they come in, where do I, what do I need?
I agree 100%, but like I said, I gave you all the options.
I'm not gonna be part of that original discussion, it was actually two. It's going to be two, and we just left the one.
Oh.
We were gonna have one in each building,
Oh.
but part of that was because of COVID, but
Yeah.
itself, but,
Mhm.
you know, that's actual a position that you have somebody actually there. Not somebody who's gonna retire, it's gonna be a process of attrition at this point in time as well.
Yeah.
And so,
And it is, once again, it could be something we revisit if we ever do have somebody, if we have the current person leave that position, we could always revisit it.
I
when
would say along the way, it's probably not the worst idea to look at the technological advances and see what they are, and that can certainly be discussed along the way, but I would feel more comfortable leaving that position in place.
Yeah, I think
as it is.
It's a nice position. The other one, I think the commercial vehicles that. Do we get anything from the state for that?
We do.
I
We
realize like everything else doesn't cover
Yeah.
what we do.
I would say if I had to dedicate one person to only do commercial, actually, I don't know that could do what our current level. It'd probably be two people, but it's only for a short period of time. So I would say the revenue that we get from doing that does cover that salary. I believe that it does. So,
That is one, and I know you haven't had success on the other, trying to get fees.
Mhm.
Is there a way to put them saying, look, there's only a few of us doing this, you need to help.
and I have brought,
Everybody-
I just
other counties
recently,
should want- Let them do it.
yes.
We need
And
to
I
set
have
up
just
the
recently
state.
brought that up with the state because when I was trying to research what it would look like if we stopped doing, I did mention that. I said, you've asked, 9 counties to take on this function. There needs to be a way for us to charge an out of county fee or something that would, help offset the costs that our Riley County ad valorem dollars are paying. So I am still working on that. So,
Kind of in Allen County, because said somebody might have their office here, but their vehicles or other places, and somebody in Marysville, well, one of their vehicles is down here, so they claim this
mhm,
as their account,
Mhm.
where. Or you go by just where their home office is,
mhm.
then do they all open an office in the county? Avoid, that sounds like the state needs to, and I know. We have a list of things that the state needs to take care of.
And it's not really high up on the list, but it's on that list.
But it seems to be a simple thing, saying if you only expect a few counties to do it, you need to help us. Like I say, there's 105 counties, and like 9 of us are doing it.
And it's not just.
And let me clarify that. That's just the IRP. Commercial, I think there's 85 counties that are doing commercial. And once again, that's, it's concentrated in that January, February, March time
Is there a
period.
statute that disallows a fee for outside county? Because.
Yeah, that's what I was
You charge
Yeah.
above a few dollars or something for, I mean, I understand that may pull some people away, I don't know, but.
Yeah.
uh,
I might have to get, Jacob to look at that with me, because I think it just says that we will charge. I know for a commercial, it's $7.50 per vehicle that we renew is what we get.
Maybe it's not a fee based off of a dollar amount, but maybe it's a percentage of the entire transaction,
Mhm.
potentially something,
Yeah,
or up to, and then it's,
I will
have a threshold on it, and maybe there's a couple of different options.
yeah, I'll continue to, I work with the state too on, because believe me, they do not want to lose us as one of their IRP counties. So I will continue to work with them and see what we can come up
I'm
with.
kind of wavering back and forth on that one, but the fact that we're actually coming out ahead means we're not technically subsidizing it at this point in time. And I just have a feeling with costs and other things, if we're gonna eventually get to that, so maybe for 26.
What is IRP?
That is, so the commercial fees are for vehicles that only travel intrastate, they stay within the state. IRP are those entities that go interstate, so, and so there's a little bit more involved with making sure they're following their, federal guidelines, that they've got the right paperwork, filed at the federal level that we have to check, and so that's why they've limited those transactions to only a handful of counties.
All those have to be done, like ours that scatter through the year, they're all concentrated at the first of the year.
Yes, so their registrations end as of December 31st, and they have until March 1st to get them renewed. So yeah, so those are all done in January and February. Now, there are a handful that happen throughout the year if they buy a new truck or whatever, but the bulk of our commercial work is done in that 2-month period.
And speaking of between the two, you did shut down driver's license for that issue.
We
in
did,
February, correct?
we did.
What was the backlash on it?
We got very little, no.
The trend on the driver's license I'm starting to see is, particularly with the younger generation, they're not going to a physical site.
Because you can renew online. Mhm.
And so to me, it's. I understand the issue there with promotion, maybe we need to readjust that and find some other opportunities within your department to extend that part out, but. To me, this one's at this point in time a no-brainer too, that disappear, and it's not for lack of trying, we tried for 6 years, we've all had a hand in that, we've all. Tried to get testimony written and oral into the process, and we can't get it through to the state, it's not helpful. So I believe it needs to.
Okay, I will mention one other thing. I did reach out to my contact at Driver's License Services to let them know that we are having these discussions and that there's a very strong possibility that we may no longer be doing this service. I offered some, I did ask, what does he think that impact would be on the full service office, adding potentially, an additional 3,000 transactions? Do you think you would have to hire? I also offered, because when they were remodeling their offices, they actually sent one of their employees to work out of our space. I also offered that as an option, that maybe they would provide somebody that would just come here a couple times a week. I got 0 response. So there has to be some give and take, and I don't feel like they're doing their part to help either. So as much as it will hurt, I'll have to explain to my staff. I think I could work with HR we could look at rewriting some job descriptions, moving some duties around. I think we could work with Vivian on education, that you can renew online, you can change your address online. We did, like for our military community, we did try to just want to be a one-stop shop, but once again, there's a full service in Geary County, and and then we could send some to the Pot County side as well. So it's I can adjust my budget to see what that looks like for you. Any other questions for me?
This is something we can go forward with.
I got,
And with the driver's license needs to be,
and then adding the facility fee.
yeah. In terms of if we could add some kind of a fee structure to the commercial side to really make sure that we're not subsidizing that. I can live with the bill exceptions.
Air perceptions. I guess the first facility fee and the driver's license things.
Is that a consensus of the board to do away with the driver's license service and to do the facilities fee and sheriff's office?
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah, I could. Sorry.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay, so the next item of services that we were discussing is the state contract for noxious weed. And I don't know if Mike's, thank you. Did you want to come up and speak about it for a little bit?
Good morning, commissioners. The state contract is really one of those interesting ones that kind of encompasses a lot of the things we have to think about when we're talking about cutting services. Upfront, our state contract, in my budget, I budget for the chemical that we use in the state contract. So in this particular instance, if we chose to get away from it, I could easily subtract probably $1,500 worth from my budget. Now, on the backside of that is the state reimburses us for all of that. They also reimburse us for the hourly rate, not just the hourly rate for the employee, but what it costs the county to insure them health insurance, what it costs for unemployment insurance, everything that behind the scenes that we pay. It's not just an hourly rate. The state reimburses us for that. They also reimburse us a rate at $55 an hour for the equipment we use. It more than covers for the diesel fuel, that sort of thing. Now, I could reduce my budget for $1,500. We generally bring in about $6,000 to $8,000 a year from the state on that contract. So I could probably give you 6 reasons why to get rid of it, 6 reasons why to keep it. A few things of the reason why is we do spend about 80 hours of our manpower, my applicator, working on state-owned roads. It's not on our own county roads. The big thing that me and surrounding counties,
Which specific?
all state roads, but yes, at K18, Zingdale Road is a state road. We spray and treat all state roads. So on a short year, we would spend 80 hours manpower. On a big year, we might be spending 120 hours of our direct man hours working on a non-county owned road and function. Another issue with this is, though, and I've talked with the state, and this is the state words, and he says, Michael, you know, if we do it, it's not going to be to your standard. Shiloh, I don't mean to pat myself on the back either, but this is the state's words. It's not going to be to the standard that we hold in Riley County. And you'll notice that. And he said, if you don't believe me, go to Marshall County, who doesn't contract with us. Go to Gary County and look at the state roads and compare them to yours. So that's another reason not to do it. One of the big things that me and surrounding counties have talked about, though, when it comes to the state contract is that of liability. That's one of those things that hasn't ever got us, so to speak. But the more we spray, the potential could be somebody could say we caused an accident, or we can get an off-target spray and spray some cropland. And that could be measured in the tens of thousands of dollars. And we are directly responsible for that. It says that very specifically in the state contract. So it may be something that if we look to keeping the state contract, perhaps I could work with Brittany and Jacob and maybe consider charging the state some kind of additional waiver on insurance or something to help cover that. I think that would be wise if we keep it. If we don't keep it, then we can subtract, $1,500 from our budget, and we don't need to worry about, I can utilize my operator to work on the lagoon ponds here in Riley County, which is getting to be more and more regulated by KDHE. It's going to require more and more attention. So again, commissioners, I can give you 6 reasons to keep it. I can get 6 reasons to get rid of it. The biggest one with the asterisk, though, that I have is that of liability. I think from a budget standpoint, one could say, I'm reluctant to say we make money off of it, but we certainly more than cover our direct cost, with the exception of that being liability. So something to consider. If the commission would like to keep it, I do believe the direction should be that we should look at, what's our insurance cover, what's that cost us, because that's something I have not built out. I will share with you, there is an adjacent county that is going to be making this decision, and they're leaning towards not renewing the state contract for specifically that reason, and to free up more of their manpower for county functions. So,
But if we do away that, we're losing income, but we're gaining some time for our guys, but
yes, Commissioner,
this is an offset of something that kind of a guaranteed portion of that money, that we get the state to cover that kind of stuff. And if it if they're covering our costs.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's, I don't see, like I say, maybe clarify the insurance with them.
Yes.
But other than that, I mean, it seems to be a worthwhile program to keep, because it make sure guys keep it, because we aren't gonna lose enough hours to lose an employee.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, it's just,
And Commissioner, I'm very glad that you brought that up. As we discuss budgets, we often overlook what we bring in on the backside.
right.
It's all about what we're spending up front, and folks that watch this don't hear what we bring on the backside. And so this particular instance,
Backside showing.
yes, the backside is
Front side.
we could save 1,500 now and not bring in 8,000. The math doesn't add up. Yes, sir. Very valid point.
Lost my train of thought. I know, you have been getting a lot more township contracts to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And would that help to offset that cost if we would not?
I'm glad you brought that up. We did discuss townships. That's something that statutorily we're not required. Having said that, the state has the funding and the equipment if we were to choose not to do it. The townships do not. If we chose not to contract with townships, I'm afraid it just wouldn't get done because they don't have the equipment to do it. And that's one thing that Brittany and I discussed, that yes, it's not statutorily required, but I think the fallout from that would be pretty dramatic. And I think we could directly affect crop yields, that sort of thing. Township roads, crops are right next to the road. And at the end of the day, we have to, I mean, noxious weeds are a problem. They're an issue, and we need to address that and do what we can as the county to prevent that. So that's a very specific reason we didn't consider. There would be some savings if we chose not to contract with townships. There would be some savings. I say we probably spend 3 times the amount of man hours that we do on townships, and that all is dependent on how many contract with us. We generally see between 6 to 8 townships a year contract with us. We're probably spending at least, I would say, 140, 150 man hours on township roads.
No, I wasn't thinking about cutting it. I was thinking about, can we increase that to increase our revenue if we would cut the state contract? And also liability is a big, I mean, all across the country, liability insurance is getting really high.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. In the payment here, what we choose to charge out for our contract is very much in our control. I do what I feel is a fair amount. I have compared our rates to other counties that do it. We were somewhere in the middle. We're not high. Shawnee County charges out $45,000 a year for state contract, to give you. Now they've got a lot of state roads.
Sure.
Before anybody calls me from Shawnee County, they've got a lot more state roads up there. But they do $45,000 a year in state contract. Now the state does limit us on how much, and that varies. And right now, or after July 1st, it's their fiscal year, and I don't know. That's the problem with doing a state contract. I often don't know. There was a year before my time that we did some spraying for the state, and they didn't budget for it, and the county had to eat that bill. It's $1,500, but that hopefully won't happen moving forward. But we could certainly look at what we charge out. I know the state, having talked with him yesterday, the superintendent, he knows as well as I do, if they have to contract with a private entity, it may be 3 times what we charge. That would be my guess. He would probably be looking at $18,000 to $20,000 to do Riley County. My guess, but I think that's a pretty safe guess.
And townships that don't contract with us, are they doing it themselves or just?
Well, they're certainly responsible for those townships. Now, they will alternate. They don't do it every year. So it's not uncommon for a township to take a year or 2 off from doing it. But again, budgets being what they are for townships, some of them just feel. I've tried to convince townships that spraying for weeds in the ditches is road maintenance. They often talk about road maintenance and worried more about the price of gravel and that sort of thing. But I try to explain to them, if you let the vegetation grow up in the ditches, you can get water erosion, and it's going to cost you big time if you don't. So the answer to your question is, they do occasionally take a year or two off, but almost all townships will contract with us at some point. But it's but directly budget related. There are some that have contracted with us for years and took this year off, and I'm sure it's budget related.
Do any of them do it themselves, though? Spray them.
I don't think that many have the equipment. I don't think they have the license to do it.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, it would
pretty
be a lot
confident to say-
involved Then to try to.
Yeah.
To just do their one township, but that'd be a lot of.
I will say this, Commissioner, we do accept mowing, frequent mowing as a control of noxious weed. I do accept that. And so indirectly, I would say they could do mowing instead, and some do that. So in defense of townships, I would say they're treating noxious weeds as long as they're occasionally mowing and keep them mowed down.
Be interested to know what some of those figures are from year to year, maybe do a comparison, it's just to know. I don't really necessarily eliminate it, but it would be good to know, good information to have.
Yeah, like I said, my biggest asterisk on this whole thing is liability. And
Maybe you need to just charge them a little bit more to make sure that we're covering liability down the road and put a price on that.
I agree. I think that that's something we should certainly discuss. It's something that I've given this some thought. Now that I think more about it, in the adjacent county that I'm talking to the public works director down there, we're discussing that very thing of at least spreading that liability out.
7, 8, 15%.
Yeah, a lot.
Per year, we've got to cover. We've got to cover the same costs as everybody else does. That's what they don't recognize.
Yes, and something that's been brought to my attention that I didn't clarify with Brittany before, but some of insurance writers do not cover an accidental off-target spray. They'll cover an accident, workers' comp, that sort of thing. And the problem is I have the utmost confidence in my operators, but as you know, if somebody else causes the problem, we're going to get blamed for it. And if we spray a road, it doesn't matter if it was 4 months ago, if there's an off-target kill, I can assure you the state's going to be calling, and we're going to have to prove ourselves innocent. So it's not that I'm worried that we're going to have it, but spills do happen. And so the more we spray, the more the probability is that we're going to find ourselves blamed. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. So I think John is still looking at parks, and I think, I don't know if you're ready to talk about parks yet. No. And then I know Diane is also still evaluating services. Did you want to speak at all, or do you want to wait till next week?
I'd like to see, rather than just a lump sum, because you said it's a series of things, that 338.
Yeah.
A breakdown of exactly what all the,
A breakdown of what that is?
what all those are.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have said so.
Yeah, I can tell
I
you.
thought of that when I looked at it earlier.
Sure. 205,000 is the federal grant increase line for, in the health department general division, and I can give you a total breakdown. Yeah.
Just
Put it in next week's packet.
Yes, absolutely.
That way everyone can see it, but broken out and described as best as possible.
Okay. So anything else on budgets? Anything? I mean, we threw kind of a lot at you today.
I'm still digesting a few things myself. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we're still talking a lot. I have another budget meeting after this with the department head. So we are reviewing services. We talked a lot about it in our department head meeting yesterday. I have another meeting set up with Diane next week. Department heads are taking your requests very seriously. They're analyzing and doing everything that they can to reduce. We had departments that I did not even specifically email asking them to reduce their budget. So everybody is making a huge, I don't know words. They're trying. Everybody's trying their best for you.
Like you said, with some of his changes, he's gonna have another change, a reduction also.
Yep.
A couple transfers you can look at, and talking about appropriations or personnel, so that's kind of big.
We can sit down and look at, I realize, hitting a lot of things, but one of these meetings, we sit down and go through appropriations and get that out of the way.
Okay, do you guys want another appropriation list? That, I mean, I gave you one at the beginning of budget season, that's been a few months now, but I can give you an updated one that can show you the 2026 request as well.
Yeah, and take off the stuff off of there that's not, I mean, we haven't discussed the use.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, because we did a different
Yeah, use it.
summary last year.
Yeah, like the long report.
Yeah.
Yes, I can
Do
update
that.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Like that. It's, you know, I'm trying to get a bite out, so I'm trying to get appropriations off of there. So
Yeah.
You got that thing,
Okay, is there anything else you would like me to update? We're already kind of making changes. Public Works is reducing their budget by 50,000. So I'll have that in next week's presentation, but is there anything else you would like me to review, cut, adjust?
See where. our-
Appreciate the work everybody's doing.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you, commissioners.
Thanks, Brittany.
I think so. I'm ready for the holiday.
Yeah.
Just allow music to blow some stuff up.
Let's say that.
Thank you.
All right, well, with that said, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to adjourn the July 3rd meeting of the Riley County Commission.
I would second that.
So moving second to adjourn the July 3rd